Good morning and welcome to the podcast. Today is February 20th. It's a Friday and it is the last Friday. No, we have one more Friday for February. I was thinking March already because I'm ready for it to get warmer. Welcome to the show. I think with the sun shining and all that stuff, we're going to have an exciting exchange. One thing that I wanted to talk about first off is that the Supreme Court just ruled on President Trump's tariffs. And like I always tell people, we had three branches of government, and it is good to not sell or tell other people the loom and doom that this is how it's going to be and nothing's going to change. The Supreme Court said that most of the tariffs that he was putting on these other countries have to go away. Now, whether I agree with the Supreme Court or not is not the issue. What I'm saying is that there are three branches of government, and when the legislative or the executive, meaning the president, say or does things that people disagree with, the courts come in, and in this case, the Supreme Court, and rules. So that's how it should be. Okay, so let's get into the show today. It was an interesting week in Illinois politics. As you are aware, since I mentioned it Monday, the Governor Pritzker did his State of the State address. So briefly, he proposed a couple of things: minimum spending growth, a new social media tax, gambling tax alignment, and corporate deduction caps. Okay, so as you are aware of, I mentioned that corporations nationally were going to get a break from the big, beautiful bill that the Trump administration and Congress passed. So the governor is proposing corporate deduction cap, extending the cap on corporate tax deductions for operating losses to raise their estimated $269 million. Okay, so what's wrong with that? As you are aware, if you tax corporations too much, well, they could decide to leave. Here is a new example. So, the Chicago Bears, and this is just talk right now, the Chicago Bears are a corporation, they're a football corporation. Well, they're looking at moving to a little town in Indiana over who's going to pay for the stadium. Now, I would submit to you, in my opinion, they're tired of being really taxed in Chicago, and they're using their reason to get out of town to say, hey, if you don't help us build the stadium, well, we're going to leave. Now, you might think taxpayer dollars and all that, but I want you to think about something else. Think about the fact of over the years of the stadium, how much money a sports team brings into your state. So, Oakland, California, if you go and you look at stats on them after that sports team left, because they didn't have many businesses for the same reason, because for whatever reason, especially in Democratic strongholds, they try to just tax you, and tax you. And quite frankly, all you're going to do is scare off the corporation. Look at New Orleans when they had the Super Bowl. That one event generated 26 or 27 million dollars for the city. Probably some of it went to the state too, but also that doesn't even include people eating and people staying at the hotels. So you have to think big picture if you are a taxpayer. He also wants to do a new social media tax. Social media companies with over 100,000 users, he wants to tax them a graduated tax. So more taxes. Minimal spending growth due to flat revenue and projected 2.2 billion deficit. Proposed uh, smallest spending increases. So they want to keep the budget the same. Okay, so with all of that said, and the reason I'm telling you that is someone on the other side, Republican, needs to be talking about, and they are, but just not as loudly. There is no mention of him of any taxpayer cuts, especially for property taxes. There are no signs that they are interested in that whatsoever. And here's one that you should be alarmed about: energy and nuclear power. Uh, New nuclear clean power plants to increase supply and lower costs. Okay, so what they're doing with that is they are speeding up uh, clean energy in the state. And that's going to cause um, utility prices to go up in Illinois because then you have all of these regulations on it and stuff. And also, if the power is nuclear, well, more of these state regulations is going to make it cost more for the utility companies, and they're going to pass that on to Joe consumer or Illinoisans in the state. Now, these are just proposals now, but they're going to come very soon. Okay, so on the Republican side, I saw the one commercial again. I asked a couple of people if they had seen any commercials coming from Republicans, and the same one that I talked about, they saw it once. Still not clear on what the Republicans are actually doing to get visibility. So, on the Republican side this week, they are still talking about tax relief and spending restraint. Now, March 17th is when the primary is coming, and I encourage you to come out and vote that day. On March 1st, your registration ends for registering online. Okay, so they want, meaning the Republicans, so I'm putting them all in the group, direct tax relief and then energy cost reductions. Okay, so they're still pushing for the property tax relief for families and seniors, which is a good thing. Stopping the automatic increase of the motor fuel tax for gasoline and diesel. I'm not even sure that most of you guys knew that or not, but there is a increase on the motor fuel tax every year, and then renewing the push for permanent grocery tax repeal. We need that one because once you start with a tax on groceries, it can only go up, and then the politicians are going to play the blame game and blame each other. And remember, with all of these, with tax relief and what the governor is proposing, the bottom line is Illinoisans are going to feel it. And also, the Republicans want to repeal the battery energy storage facility law, and the Republicans say that this will cost you $7 billion, and we're talking about energy costs that will be passed on because remember, the utility companies want to do infrastructure. Now, the question is, how are they going to do it? And in this part of the state, Southern Illinois, we're going to feel the brunt of it based on how we're being taxed here locally. Now, I have an idea. I was talking about the unique governor's power in Illinois to veto. And it's unique because it gives a governor what they call fine tuning powers. So it's four different ones, but I want to focus on two of them. So, a mandatory veto returns a bill with specific recommendations for changes, right? So, when the governor doesn't like a certain part of it, he can make the suggestion. Line item veto allows the governor to delete specific dollar amounts of programs in an appropriations bill while signing the rest into law. That is powerful. They tried that at the federal level during the Clinton administration, and the Supreme Court said that that was not constitutional, but for the state of Illinois, it works. And then reduction veto permits the governor to reduce a specific spending amount in an appropriations bill. So the last two are very important. Well, all three of them are, because the governor, if it's a Republican, that's how you keep the super majority of Democrats in the Illinois legislature from raising property taxes, raising sale taxes, putting in these new laws, taxing corporations more. And this is unique for Illinois and backed up in the Illinois Constitution. And that is a good reason to vote Republican for governor, because the governor can do that in Illinois. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the mandatory. All right. So, as I said, Illinois is one of the handful of states that allows this type of veto. All right. Illinois governors have historically used it to make substantive policy changes, effectively allowing the executive to rewrite parts of a bill before it becomes a law. There is your buffer zone for Illinois to keep the legislature from enacting these laws that don't benefit the people or the majority of Illinoisans in Illinois. Now, low override thresholds for changes. So the supermajority in both chambers, in both chambers, is required to override a full or line item veto. The legislature can accept the governor's amendatory suggestions or restore reduction veto with only a simple majority vote. That's important because Republicans are in the minority in the Illinois legislature, and they can partner up with other Democrats and then get these changes. And this is the only way that Republicans can get some of their views to help the people of Illinois who are in the minority. Now, I looked at the voting numbers too. So the Democrats have roughly 3 million and some change of registered voters. And then the Republicans are probably at about 2,800,000. The independents are pretty high. They're probably at 27 million. So the reason that I mention this is because people have told me in this part of Illinois that they don't think that we have the numbers to make a difference in statewide elections. I would submit to you, when you have partisan numbers of over 2 million voters that you do. And also remind people that the last Republican governor was Governor Bruce Rauner. So we can affect those kind of changes if the candidates, and this is Senate too, because so far I see no evidence that the Republicans are going to field a Senate candidate that stands a chance of winning in November. We have to vote in the primaries. So, with all of that being said, the focus should be on voting in the primary by looking at the candidates. We have to do that. Now, I've been a little bit general about talking about the actual candidates because I can't interview them or do anything like that. So I want to stay away from looking at individual people. People are charged with going out there and seeing who's out there and then making a decision based on that. So I've been pretty fair about just saying what they're all talking about, and I'm telling you that weekly. Now, it ties in with what I talked about this week with voting. People need, Illinoisans more specifically, need to vote in the primary. And also, we need to register. Because if we look at the total number of people in Illinois, we can see that a lot of people have thrown up their hands and they don't even vote at all. And we cannot change the state with this heavy taxation unless we are voting and telling the people running that that's what we want. Those two things work hand in hand in Illinois. And with this governor veto power, if you had a Republican, you could get some reduction, especially in taxation, because when the legislature is trying to either raise amounts that certain groups are spending, especially since the current governor said that they're going to leave it the same, and also they're going to tax certain groups, especially corporations. We need corporations in this state. So all of those work hand in hand. So, as I've previously said, I'm bringing you the local politics, and I am so excited to do that for you. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. And hopefully, over the weekend, there won't be anything that happens from the legislature or governor that puts us in more of distress with taxes. This is just Listen, hosted by George Live. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend.